Right, we will be recording this and we will be sharing it later on. Okay, so we want to thank you, Mr. MP Scotland, for inviting us to have this meeting with you. We look forward to be able to have residents express their views on what is going on because, being frank, we feel ignored, and the problems that you're going to hear today are not new. They have been said numerous times, but nothing has been done about it. So we ask that you listen to what we have to say. We have some very good suggestions for the avenue because, unlike what is said in the public domain, we are for improvements in the area, but we want it to be done where we do not become an ancient relic in Woodbrook. We want to be a part of it, and it cannot be to the detriment of residents. Okay, so with that, Mr. Scotland, I invite you to give your opening address.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very glad to have had the opportunity to meet with the residents of Woodbrook, and in particular the streets that border north-south of the avenue, where the proposed improvement of the avenue is scheduled to take place. The purpose of this meeting is simply to have your views expressed to me so that I can first digest them and see what movement I can bring to have your views put in the domain that the powers that be, when considering the improvement of the avenue, have your views on board and take them on board. This follows about 2 weeks ago, we had the public consultation, but there was the last person who asked, and I found out who the last person who contributed, asked that we have a follow-up. We intend to have a follow-up, but I thought that before we do this, I would reach out to you, the residents, to hear what your views are. I am doing this in conjunction with a house-to-house. If you check, it is not junk mail. It is something that I have sent to each person, each resident, so that they can put their views in writing, and I will use that in conjunction what we are doing here tonight. So residents, the floor is really yours, and I'm open to hear your views.
Okay, great. We're going to start off with some questions that were sent to us beforehand before we go into the comments from the residents. Okay, first one, please provide details as to the impact the pedestrianization of Woodbrook will have on the people who actually live on the avenue, especially in terms of privacy and noise pollution, etc. In what proximity from the respective homes can residents on the avenue expect the festivals, stalls, cafes, markets, etc. to be set up or take place?
The stalls, as I understand, it's a long question. Let me answer. The pedestrianization ought not to affect the residents that go on either side, in the sense that it will be the major thoroughfare. I don't expect, if there are fairs or any festivals like that, that it would in any way migrate from the main thoroughfare. But that is something that I don't think that we have micromanaged as yet, and that will have to be on a festival by festival, and I put festival in open close quotation marks because that is the words that you used. That will be done on an event by event basis, I suspect. Relative to the noise pollution, that is, if I can answer that, because I expect that question will come up again. It is something that I consider very seriously. There are regulations that affect noise pollution. And I remember when we had the public consultation, the Minister of Planning and Development suggested the placing of monitors on certain businesses. But that will have to be in conjunction, of course, with persons, enforcement officers being there to enforce it. So that is something that is on the cards, and it is not something that I will ignore for the simple reason that I'm of the view that even though businesses operate and we have no issue with that, I don't think you will have an issue with that. It ought not to be out with the law, and it ought not to affect your quiet enjoyment.
Okay, another question. Is this an extinction project? A number of residents have been trying to have their leases renewed for years without success, and now this push for business development. Is Woodbrook to be the new downtown Port of Spain?
Um, I will give some free legal advice. If you have a lease, I suspect one of the clauses of your lease is that there's an option to renew. I ask you to take your proprietorial rights very seriously, residents. And if it is that the leases are submitted for, well, one, submit your leases for renewal. Do not sit on it. If the time has come, the lease is expired, submit them for renewal. And two, if you have submitted it, as I'm sure some of you have, sometimes the pace of the approval of those leases, because I've had some of your residents come to my office, which mind you is on Methuen Street, and say, look, my lease has been submitted to, it's a corporation, yes? And it has been there for ages. I don't know. I heard you all met with his worship, the mayor. Why didn't you all ask him about that? But I certainly can write, because sometimes those leases and the renewal of the leases goes at a pace of the snail walking on peanut butter and falling off on molasses. And I think that is something that ought to be looked at. It is not within my control to renew it, but it is certainly within his worship's control. And I know that he will look at it. But in any event, you all need to pursue it. But as a matter of, and I am taking a note on this one, can you tell me, however, there'll be two categories, yes? There'll be the categories of persons who leases have expired and who have written for them to be renewed and it's not been renewed. So we need to know that category. And for those of you whose leases have expired, but you have not applied for them to be renewed, do that, because you may be jeopardizing your rights. As far as I'm aware, it is not a project that accords with or is planned to have the extinction of Woodbrook as a residence. Constituents, residents, may I say this? I remember I didn't want to say this on television, but do you know that Woodbrook is to be credited to having the first set of street band launchings in Trinidad and Tobago? You know where Young Sing is? That's the street where by Hilo, that Hilo on Front Street, yes? I think that was Victor Reek. Glenn Cavallo started his band launching on one of those, I think it's Carlos Street. Dr. Max Awong had his band. This is outside the mass camp. This was before people started to pay to go all-inclusive band launchings. I say that to say that Woodbrook has always been a prime mover of that sort of activity as part of our culture, and it has survived. I don't expect, and I have no knowledge of Woodbrook being earmarked as a residential area to become extinct. Some of your houses, if I'm correct, you still have gingerbread houses in some of those side streets. Am I not correct, Mrs. Waddle?
Yes.
Those are national, those are treasured. So that is my answer. But I've taken a note, renewal of leases.
Okay.
And no, hold on, let me follow up. If I get a list from you of those who have applied to have their leases renewed, I undertake to do a letter on everyone's behalf who has given me the authorization to do so, and write it to His Worship the Mayor, or I think it's the Chief Engineer who is responsible for it, asking about the renewal of your lease.
Well, I can say that he's aware of the problem because we've brought it up with him. And yeah. Okay, next question. We live in a country where basic laws are not enforced and facilities are not maintained. How do you expect us to believe that this time it'll be any different?
I do not agree. I do not subscribe to your theory that we live in a country where basic laws are not enforced and things are not maintained. What I do say is that sometimes persons find ways of breaking the laws, and in particular, um, when things we sometimes we behave poorly. Um, the presence of the police force will be very helpful and go a long way to maintain law and order. I do not expect to be part of Residents of Woodbrook, a project that improves and augments and I don't want to use beautifies, because beautifies, if you know Shakespeare, has a double meaning. Beautifies is not normally a positive word, but you build infrastructure and then you allow it to deteriorate. That makes no sense. I expect that there will be maintenance of whatever improvements are made. And I sincerely hope, and I would advocate, that for the young persons in Woodbrook, that we can also create synergies with jobs for them relative to the upkeep of state.
Okay, was an environmental impact assessment ever conducted for the commercialization and zoning of Ariapita Avenue? And if not, why?
I don't know. That is before my time. I'll have to check that. I don't.
Okay, with the limited financial resources, why not consider using the whole Independence Square for this project? There are no residents in that area, and they could easily construct additional multi-story car parks if necessary.
Independence Square is different from Ariapita Avenue, and there are plans for Independence Square. Well, what I do want to say though, and I'm getting, you started by saying that that the residents are not against change and improvement. So I ask you all to work with us in a genuine way to see the development of is it Adam Smith Square, which is a square that has been there for quite some time. It's a square that, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but when things were open, for instance, on festivals such as Diwali, it used to be lit up. I'm almost certain about that. And
Yes.
I don't think, and remember, we are trying to create more green spaces. And I think that will be beneficial to the residents in more ways than. So I ask, don't try to run the project out of Ariapita Avenue and say, okay, go down Independence Square.
We're not. I wouldn't take it to mean that we're trying these questions that we're trying to run it from the avenue, because we do want improvements. We've been begging for improvements in the area because we live here and we see the problems every day, and we see how it affects both residents and businesses, and we see that there's no attempt to fix those problems. So please don't take the questions from residents to mean that we are anti improvements along the avenue. But And like I did say, we do have a lot of suggestions. So
Good.
it's not that we're trying to just cut anything off.
Ac-
Um, hello, Mr. Scotland? Did we lose
I'm
you?
still there. No. I'm still there with you.
Oh, okay. Okay, so before I get to these suggestions, I'll just ask you one more question that somebody asked. They would like to know how the maintain, well, I just closed off the chat by accident, forgive me. Where will the fees for the maintenance and upkeep come from for the avenue?
Um,
And how would it be closed off?
wi- the fees will come from, or the monies for maintenance will come from both the annual budgets, both by the city corporation and the annual general budget. And what is the close off? Forgive me, I'm drinking water, not
Where
coffee.
would they, oh no, that's fine. How will they be closing it off when they need to pedestrianize it? Because we have
Oh,
not been able to get any.
no, they raised the intended plan is to have
Mhm.
those. It was said at our consultation, those things that are put into the ground, and they raise themselves, and they're raised up um electronically.
Right. Um, okay, a statement from somebody. The idea of the avenue being Piccadilly Circus is in London is not feasible in any sense. This is better suited for the area of Broadway, the Promenade, Frederick Street, where KFC has already started with the electronic flashy signage. Um, Possibly develop the old Salvatore building area along those lines.
Your audio cut out, Asha.
Oh, my audio cut out? Okay. Are you hearing me now?
Yes, just repeat your question.
Oh, it was a statement, actually. The idea of the avenue being Piccadilly Circus in London is not feasible in any sense. This is better suited to the area of Broadway, the Promenade, Frederick Street, where KFC already has started with an electronic flashy signage. Develop the old Salvadori building area along those lines.
I don't think that if it was likened to be the Piccadilly Circus, that was just simile. It wasn't. It would become Piccadilly Circus. The Avenue has its own ethos. It has its own environment. It has its own charm, and the development will be in keeping with the Avenue's own unique charm. I
Okay,
get a
we have a,
sense of may I just finish? I get a sense
I
that what
apologize.
you all are saying is go down by KFC, go down on Trump. That's just a sense I'm getting.
Okay, we're gonna take a question. So I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna pronounce your name wrong. Mm, Asanute. Eels? Elise?
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Hello.
Good, good, good after, or rather, good evening to all on the at the meeting. And my respects to the honorable member of parliament. But I'm really fascinated, and I continue to be fascinated by the Woodbrook residents, and it goes a long way back. I really, in listening to the honorable MP, noted some questions and some points that I merely wanted to clarify. The question of the renewal of leases is a long and tedious process, which has much to do with the fact that it is not a City Hall assignment. It is an assignment that moves from City Hall to the Ministry of Local Government. From the Ministry of Local Government, it goes to Cabinet, and from cabinet it goes to the president. It also makes its way back before you can even lay sight of that document. The process in itself is what has to be remedied. In addition to that, however, a number of people may find themselves having difficulties with their leases, largely because the Port of Spain Corporation is mandated by law to treat with the renewal of the lease in a specific kind of way, which is to say, you are not free to put up a garage without the approval of the Port of Spain Corporation. And so if you added a room and the Port of Spain Corporation was not involved in it, they wait for you for the 20 years or the 29 years. And when you do come around for the renewal, that is when you are asked, well, why did you put up this? And that is when we have a lot of delays. There are also delays that have much to do with inheritances, in that you inherited the property from your parents. Your parents are no longer alive to renew the lease or to pass the lease on to you. And so oftentimes we have difficulties with that. And that is not peculiar to Woodbrook. It is peculiar to the plots in the cemetery and so on and so forth. I thought I would help the group in understanding some of the difficulties with the leases. There is the other issue of a police post. And every time these things come up, I'm literally amazed. We have more police stations in Port of Spain than anywhere else in the world for the size of the place and the number of people who use the place. There are 13 police stations. We have a Woodbrook police station. Why are we expending, or why are we proposing to expend more of our limited resources to put another police post? It might mean, therefore, if we feel that we have to put a police post, it might mean that what you are proposing as an improvement, or you are proposing as a development, may well not be a development. And so the question begs, who determines development? I remember sitting as mayor, honorable MP, when the Woodbrook residents came to us with a petition of nearly 5,000 signatures. And the protest was over the erection and construction of a multi-story hotel in the heart of Woodbrook. We had to look at it objectively. And at the end of the exercise, we had to agree with the residents of Woodbrook. And I certainly, sitting then as the mayor, agreed with the people of Woodbrook that it would have been a gross inconvenience to them to put up such a structure at that particular location. So the question is, who determines development? And finally, if we are to deal with the noise pollution, I don't know whether the honorable MP is aware of it, but there is established precedent to govern the whole question of noise and vis-a-vis public convenience. These are all matters that we dealt with. I remember Councillor Garcia and myself, along with the Woodbrook residents, went to court on 16 occasions to establish this precedent, which is to say that it is the responsibility of the clubs and the businesses and the people who operate and who want to do that kind of entertainment to ensure that they're soundproof. That is established in the courts. It is also established fixed opening and closing hours, which came against the issue. And I'm not dealing with law because I could never with you, honorable MP. I would be out of place. But it, as my memory serves, it had to do with the opening and closing any day, any times that we were confronted with. And we went there and the magistrate established that there was such a thing as a set time, opening and closing time for watering holes in Woodbrook. I thought I would put these points before the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Leasing. That actually goes into some points that we have regarding noise pollution and some suggestions that we have. But before I get into that, I just want to read a comment from a viewer. I'm in favor of the Avenue as an entertainment center. I want it done classily, and I want it to speak Woodbrook. There must be room for families, for young people to socialize, for the elderly, and for culture seekers. Do it sensibly, and we can do it. Jettison it, and Woodbrook can die. Do it badly, and Woodbrook can die. I'm going to go to the noise pollution. As you know, we have an issue with the bars. I would not worry to go into details with that because that has been said continuously over the years, right? These are some of the suggestions your residents have, Mr. Scotland. We would like to have external speakers on all bars and restaurants banned. We would like mandatory soundproofing of bars and restaurants because we have a situation now where some residents, well, in the before times, where residents were not able to sleep until the wee hours of the morning because of the noise from the bars and the restaurants. Nightclubs, discos, establishments should be soundproof to control the noise with nothing filtering out. We need to have a hefty enforcement of fines in place to curb such behavior. Right. So what are your thoughts on that? Would you give us support with the anytime in getting the any day, anytime laws regarding bars amended?
Let me start. Remind me to ask to answer that to you, but let me start with His Worship, former Mayor of Port of Spain, grateful for your contribution. With respect to the renewal of the leases, I still maintain that if you undertake to give me the names, etc., with the particulars, Mr. Leasing has very helpfully told us the process, but that process must be speeded up for the simple reason that persons' leases they affect their actual living, and you would need that document. So I can certainly write both to the mayor and the Honorable Attorney General and ask that this, whatever the process is, that it be speeded up. The police post. Yes.
Oh, no, I was just saying, okay, you could go ahead.
Secondly, the police. I did think about how many police stations. Maybe it's an increase in police presence because I know that still they try to enforce the closing down at 10 o'clock. So maybe it's really an increased police presence we require as opposed to a police post without a police presence. So that is something that we certainly can look into. The issue of who determines development, that is why I think we are having this conversation so that you, the residents, can have an input into how Woodbrook developed. Would I support the change of the law? I will not wholeheartedly, but I think I have a solution. The law as it stands, and I have made the leading case on noise pollution and bars opening, is the case of Sedeno versus the magistrate. Mr. Leasing, at the time that you were there, you had a magistrate who was very supportive, Mrs. Mackenzie, God rest her soul. But it's a case of Gregory Sedeno and Annette Mackenzie. And there are certain guidelines that have been laid down. And I want to work with you if you'd allow me in this regard. The decibel level has been established, I think, at 65 for certain times. And that's the law. So in other words, a bar could play its music up to that level. And the question really is, where is the point of where you do the measurement? Is it the point of the bar or the point of the residence? The court, and Justice Smith has ruled, Justice of Appeal Gregory Smith has ruled, that people can kill their ears in a bar with a lot of noise, but rarely you ought to put the measurement as to when it leaves and when it goes to the places. So in other words, what I'm saying is putting the monitors is something that is very important, but the law is a little more sophisticated than that. As the hours grow greater, the noise level, according to law, diminishes. The law does not allow you to go at 65 decibels at 2 a.m. in the morning. And then that means, therefore, that there can be a coexistence with the bars and whatever establishments that they have opening, but keeping their decibel levels down. It would mean, of course, enforcement. It will also mean the responsibilities of the bar owner. When things open up, there's a Rose Enterprises. They are the experts in the measurement of decibel level. I think that we need to have a conversation about that, particularly about the positioning of any speakers if they are external, because sometimes the position of the speakers may affect a home in Woodbrook where you will get rattling. The noise may be normal, but you're getting rattled from the speakers. Am I correct? In your
Yes,
house.
we have
So
we have a
that is,
particular resident.
so that then is an area that we certainly can look at. With respect to the nightclubs, I don't see there being an issue with there being an approach to them saying, look here, would you keep your noise inside by insulating your business premises? Because remember, the nightclubs are they are closed up as opposed to the open air one. I can't do this conversation and not be realistic. Some of the bars are open air bars. So the nightclubs, we can approach that, and that is an approach that we need. The owners may tell us that that comes at a cost, but certainly we can approach that with respect to their levels and they having the areas insulated. I think I've answered
With
all the
all,
questions.
okay, thank you for that. But with all due
At the
respect
risk,
regarding the
Madam
noise,
Chair Lady, let me, I really wish clarification on this particular point, because these are, all of this we have walked already, as I say to you, and I hear what the Honorable MP has said, but the court established, and I don't know that that has changed, that with specifics, and I remember Little Havana was one of the bars that were pointed out, and another, where the issue was the fact that they were open and they were playing all this noise. The magistrate said, well, listen, the court ruled that if you want to do that, soundproof your bar and you could play the noise as long as you wish. But in the context of the open air bars, we are not saying that you shouldn't have open air bars, but you certainly shouldn't have bars where they're blasting the music like if it's coming off a music truck, a big truck on Marshall Montano's big truck. And that's the point. That's the point that is being established.
We are agreed on that.
Okay. Thank you so much, MP.
okay, I'm just going to take a question from Peter. So Peter, you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Hi. I wasn't here for the whole meeting, but what I want to ask is like, and also comment is like, before making an attraction in Woodbrook and we introduce that, fine. What about making Woodbrook attractive by removing two main areas that is the problem in Woodbrook to start? One is crime. Why we can't clean up now? Why we have to wait till the attraction is put there and then clean up, right? You know, people are being held up daily at gunpoint, right? People I know were shot and killed in Adam Smith Square, right? Why we can't do things and make neighborhood watches, advertising, where a number can be called for quick response, reduce the line, make Woodbrook attractive. Second thing, the homeless, right? I mentioned, the mayor mentioned another meeting earlier, that we are trying to get a home for our building for them, right? How could it be not against the law to build living areas around benches in Adam Smith Square? People bathing naked, defecating, washing and hanging out clothes to dry in the square. How can that be within the law? Nobody could go with the children in the square with all this going on. We used to have city police long ago. They were present. They used to pass and stop people playing footballs, confiscate the footballs, stop people sitting on benches. What happened? They have no city police again. Why, why can't we have a rule in these squares? Nobody allowed in the square after 10 p.m. because of all the cocaine needles and all that being found there in the squares. Then when you have a rule like that, you think that's only 2 areas to start. So, that's my question. Why we can't start now and make Woodbrook attractive and then put an attraction?
Okay, thank you, Peter. Cecile, you can go ahead and ask your question. Oh, Cecil, I'm sorry.
No, it's Cecile, but I thought
Cecile?
MP
Oh, okay.
wanted one.
No. Sorry about that. I will mute my mic and wait.
Oh. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, sir, for meeting with us today. I have a couple of quick comments and questions. One is relating to the noise pollution. I don't know if I'm the only person who hears them, but we seem to have a bit of a Wallafield racetrack at night on Ariapita Avenue going down the extension and onto the foreshore and then back up Ryson Road. We usually start somewhere around 11:30 or so and zooming up and down till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. On the weekends, it's extremely annoying. They seem to rev their engines on purpose, which is something
Not
that I
intervening. You say that on the weekends when the avenue is packed, you still have that?
Yes, I hear it on the weekends. I occasionally hear it during the week. I was actually enjoying COVID very much because it was actually peaceful and quiet. But it has once we started being released, it up to last week they were doing it. I haven't heard it since we went back in, of course. The second thing is, oh dear, lost my train of thought. Sorry. Yes, the Woodbrook police seem to be under the impression that the area west of, I assume, Petra Street falls under the jurisdiction of St. James. Because every time I have called the Woodbrook police, they inform me that I need to call St. James police. I don't know why that is, because you all have explicitly stated that Woodbrook extends from Colville Street to the Maraba River, and we're east of the Maraba
I
River.
could actually answer that question. The police border is Anna Street. So from Anna Street heading west is under St. James, but the Commissioner of Police has said that they have an open door policy, so you should be able to call any station and get a response. But technically, anywhere past, any west of Anna Street falls under St. James.
I see. Well, thank you for that. However, when I call St. James, they always ask me, so why you didn't call Woodbrook? So it would be nice if the my third comment is that I believe what we heard last week put a bit of fear into some of the residents, which is why you're getting this sense of angst that Woodbrook is going to become something like St. James Western Main Road, which we do not want at all. There seemed to have been a bit too much emphasis placed on the bars and the nightlife and the this and that and the other, and nothing with regard to what the folks are discussing currently, which is the family life and the encouragement of green spaces and so on and so forth. We have a lot of schools here, St. Teresa's, Fatima, St. Christopher's, EC's, Princess Elizabeth. So it is, you don't want your children going to school in a commercial district. It does not make sense. So that is a fear that I think was seeded in us from the last conversation that we had with you. I would particularly like to stress the historical and cultural nature of Woodbrook. You mentioned something just now regarding the gingerbread houses and the land launchings, but we have so much more. We have Minshall's house, we have Pat Bishop's house, we have all these other areas that would be fantastic for cultural walking tours. We have Cocoa Bell, we have places that make great food. And we seem to be stuck in this concept of the fast food, four gyro restaurants or stalls on one block, which makes no sense. And there needs to be a control, I believe, of that. And also the sanitation aspect of it. Some of them look rather grungy. So what the good gentleman was saying just now, we need to really start enforcing a cleanliness and sanitation and noise effectiveness control aspect of Woodbrook, so that we can then implement a forward-looking policy that takes us into exploring the history and culture and creating an environment that is conducive to family, young children, older folks, because the sidewalks are not walkable. My father stopped before he died, stopped going out because he was afraid of falling down because the sidewalks are loose. Oh, and the cables, the overhead cables that seem to want to choke you as soon as you step outside your front door, the light poles and whatnot. So it is very concerning, and we appreciate that you want to develop Woodbrook, but we are concerned about this emphasis on bars, nightclubs, and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Cecile. Mrs. Scotland, would you like to respond? Or do you want to hear from another resident?
Would you allow me to respond before I feel overwhelmed, and then I can hear from the other residents, Madam Chair?
Yep, that's why I asked.
Woodbrook, if we are having a genuine discussion, and that is what I think we have in here, I heard a neighborhood watch. Why can't you all establish a neighborhood watch? How does the government get involved in that? Isn't that something that is driven by the Woodbrook residents? Yes.
We already have a neighborhood watch in place
Well, then, if that is the
that we're
case,
doing with Crime Stoppers and the TTPS. It's already established.
well, in that case, then energize it and make it more effective, particularly on a weekend. And if that is the case, and you partner, you stay with the police, partner also with the municipal police. The homeless, we have already established a place for the homeless, which is at
Hello, excuse me, hello, good day.
Good day.
Just you could.
Okay.
I'm not even sure. Yes, you just have to wait a little bit. Taylor Street.
Okay, no problem, no problem. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Could you please mute your mic until we call on you, okay? Thank you. Okay, Mr. Scotland, you can continue.
The homeless, we have arranged already a place for the homeless. I would say that I have heard what happens now on Adam Smith Square, and I have noted what was said is happening on Adam Smith Square with respect to the homeless. There's a place that we have already put for them, which is at the bottom of Independence Square, opposite what is called Riverside Plaza. So I will certainly, when I meet with His Worship the Mayor, remind him of that situation that goes on in Adam Smith Square relative to the homeless. Sometimes when you move them to residents, they move and then they just come back. So I guess we have to try to balance that. Noise pollution, I have tried to deal with that. I don't know how, as an MP, I could affect people driving quickly on the roads. That is something I really don't know. Maybe the police ought to be on the beat to affect that. The jurisdiction points I find a little unacceptable. That's not the word I want to use, but I'm being taped. I think if you call a police station, they should not say jurisdiction if there's something urgent and happening, and I will address that with the Commissioner of Police. I think by and large, the police are cooperative though, and I don't understand this, well, you call the wrong police station. The historical context, for sure, that will be part of the development, because that is what makes Woodbrook different from KFC on Independence Square. That is what makes Woodbrook different from St. James, which has its own lure. St. James has its own attraction. I know you all didn't say St. James in a looking down way, but just well, we want Woodbrook to develop as Woodbrook is, and we intend for Woodbrook to develop with the ethos of Woodbrook. St. James will develop with the ethos of St. James. I can take the next question.
Okay, before Chad speaks, I just want to go back to the neighborhood watch. We have a neighborhood watch, and the councillor June Durham has actively been doing getting air horns out in the neighborhood. We have a very active station council. I believe it's a pillar in the country and an example for the rest of community councils in in Trinidad and Tobago. If any residents are not a member of the neighborhood watch, please message and we'll add you on. But right now we have 4 groups and we have a lot of people in there. So yeah, and we've also done walkabouts with the police to build community. Okay, Chad, mic's yours.
Hi, good day, Mr. Scotland. Thank you for this evening. I have a number of different points I would like to touch on. And it's actually, as I tell people all the time, we and Ashela said this one, we are not against the development, but how the plan comes across. It seems that the avenue itself is to be developed and everything else put to the side, right? So there's a couple points here. And the major thing it goes out is an outright plan and community integration, which is you'll put forward the plan for the development, beautification, and development of Ariapita Avenue in 2 different phases. But you did not touch on some very key points, which is to literally right off of the avenue, the north and south side of the avenue, the residents, and the infrastructure that comes. So one of the main things that it's almost June, and residents, especially on the western side, Lower Taylor Street, closer to Ryson Road, everywhere, basically from Morfino, go up to Belsmite Street. It floods quite a lot. And that is even at the corner intersection of French Street and Ryson Road, that it floods now. These are both inlets into Ariapita Avenue as well as exits. And now these places are now flooded every year, especially that road outside of Woodbrook Community Center. And that is a major inlet to get away from Ryson Road traffic, to come onto the avenue, to get back onto St. James or to St. Clair, so forth. And I myself work in the entertainment industry, the bars and restaurants, and I can correlate between 2014 to 2020. Anytime there was any kind of flooding in Woodbrook, sales dramatically dropped. And you can ask, I'm pretty sure if you ask a lot of the business people who have bars who've been running through that period, that they will say, well, when it's flooded, we have bad taste, people not coming up, people don't want to go through traffic, etc. So that is one of the issues for the development plan for the avenue. How do you want to get people on the avenue if you have periodic flooding and static traffic or no flow of traffic in and out of the avenue on certain days? And every little day matters for business, right? Even for the residents getting stuck in their house, residents have to sandbag in front of their doors that the flooding doesn't come in, right? The next thing too is you have to look at infrastructure within our neighborhood. Now, I don't know if the other residents will say this one, but since COVID and lockdown from last year, with restaurants and bars closed, you're not getting the dip in electricity that you used to have, especially on a Friday and a Saturday night. I have 2 laptops that their batteries were destroyed because of power dips and power surges when I was in UWI. And on a Friday or Saturday night, when restaurants and bars are running, we have dips in currents or surges in currents because of the load being taken from all these bars running, all the electronics, point of sale systems, music, everything, even including all the food vendors and other places that require current. It is a minor, maybe a minor issue to look into, but it benefits both the residents as well as the future businesses that are on the avenue to upgrade the electricity system within our area. Water as well, water, but we'll keep that conversation for another time based on what's going on. Hold on, let me just go into my book right here. So you touched on street food and sanitation. And again, I'm from the
Actually,
restaurant.
Chad,
Mm-hmm.
Chad, let me just cut in because you kind of
Sure.
we actually plan to talk to that. The next point was going to be infrastructure, which you basically said the main major points. But yeah, go ahead and continue. Yeah, go ahead, continue.
Okay. As Cecile said, street food, the development, and if you look at trips around the world, they both incorporate street food as well as restaurants and bars. And in that development aspect, street food vendors have to be held to the same standards as a restaurant. If I in a restaurant have a leaking sink, I'm not cleaning my chillers properly, I'm not wiping my tables with bleach every time I put something raw or something cooked and clean it properly, I can get charged by Ministry of Health, by any health personnel. It has gotten better over the years, but the level of sanitation still up to now needs to be addressed, especially if it is that you have a plan that you want to make a strip that we can boast about, both as residents and as Trinidadians on the whole, that this is the major thoroughfare, this is a major commercial place. If we want to market and promote it, especially carnival time, or even to any food venturers from around the world to come and try Trinidad food, come and try the taste of Trinidad and Tobago, we have to be on that level of sanitation that restaurants hold at the street food level. And I mean, since that incident 2016 with the gyro guys right next to Jacqueline's, where the rats were running all over the equipment and they got shut down, it has gotten better, but it's still not to the point that it should be. You all touch on the homeless situation. Again, I live on Adamsfield Square, and just from my experience alone, there is a guy literally in the empty lot next to me who lives in the guard booth, and it's him by himself, but all the time there are 2 or 3 people coming inside. I could go and smoke a cigarette at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he is smoking coke, and you know from the smell. And there's always the people begging by the bank or hustling by the bank. And now that the Republic Bank has put up the fencing, they are blocking the pathway. You're getting half to a quarter of the pathway to pass by them, and it obstructs people. It makes people feel uncomfortable, and not just residents, other people coming into it.
Okay, thanks, Chad. I don't mean to cut you off, but we have other people asking questions and we have some other stuff to go through. But feel free to put up your hand and we'll come back to you, okay? Mr. Scotland, do you want to answer? Or would you like me to take another comment from a restaurant?
I can take another comment.
Okay, Chris, you're up.
Thank you. Thanks, Asha.
No
a couple of things. Hello, and hello,
good
Mr.
evening.
Scotland. How are you?
Good evening, Master. I took your advice.
I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you so much. The first thing is that if we just think of one simple thing, and that is that, and I'm back on the question of the avenue, and Woodbrook people have to be able to enjoy the avenue as well. which means that Woodbrook people have to be able to walk safely to the avenue at night and in the day and return home. So if you look at it that way, you recognize the importance of handling our side streets and all of our streets within Woodbrook in a particular type of way in terms of safety, etc. I wanted to point out something, and Ashel, please excuse me. I don't, you and I don't usually disagree, but I disagree on one little thing, right? And that is, I don't want closed buildings. That they actually created a greater danger. That massive casino is an example. That monolith that was allowed to go up on that block on the avenue actually creates danger. I actually want to see street activity. I actually want sidewalk cafes, and I want us to focus on planning, development, and enforcement. So we hear a lot about the decibel levels, etc. I want us to make sure that those things are enforced. I'm not sure if you know it, Mr. Scotland, but one of the things I think that still rests very heavily with Woodbrook residents was the fact that our friend, Mr. Caesar, actually had to abandon his home because of what was then the zoo. And the licensing matter in the zoo, which afforded the zoo a license, and Mr. Caesar could no longer use his home. And that is a type of thing that Woodbrook people fear, and with justification. So some of the businesses are not good neighbors. And there has to be, I think, an understanding, not just now at planning and development stage, but I think also going forward, while all of this is happening, just as we continue through life, there has to be an understanding and possibly some sort of association, some sort of body where residents and the businesses work together. I think it's of great import. But when I speak as well about planning, development, and enforcement, I look at something. We have to be careful to not just let, should I say, the natural vicissitudes of capitalism change the tenure of the avenue. So when the whole avenue thing started, it was actually restaurant row. But restaurants, it's more difficult to make money in restaurants. It is to make money in bars. So the restaurants gave way to the bars. And it's easier to make money in casinos. So the bars have been giving way to casinos. And what is very important is that we find a way to ensure that we create this in such a way that it is pleasant, that we have places for young people. It's extremely important that young people are able to get out and congregate and party and lime. That's a very necessary thing. And we mustn't make the mistake of saying, shut it all down. That's a natural part of life. But we also need to ensure that we have places, etc., for families. We have places as well for older people who want to take a stroll, that we have places for and events at times that suit children. So the whole problem, I think, can be solved by good planning, good mixed use, good interaction between residents and business. Business must understand the needs of residents. Residents must understand what kicks in business, and then together we can get something that works properly. For example, I want the parks open at night. We have a thing in Trinidad where we say, lock it down, shut it down, close it. That's not it. The parks must be able to be open at night. So that means we need them properly lit, maintained, and patrolled so that we can have a movie night in the park. We can have an event in the park, or people could just stroll in the park safely at night. So it's not about turn the key, lock it down, close it, create the rush. It is about the energy and the effort and the constant work that we put into something. One of the things, for example, I heard you all discussing on the last occasion was the shuttle bus system. And I pray, please, that when you think of shuttle buses, you think about them sensibly. So you're not using the wrong type of shuttle bus. So a big PTSD bus and coming down the road, but you think about shuttle buses that are also sensibly designed and suited to tie in the entire concept. So the visioning is important. For some reason in our country, we have stopped visioning. And it's extremely important to vision and then work towards that particular vision. I remember, for example, Digicel at one point had done a nice bicycle rickshaw thing on the avenue and tuk-tuks, and then it died. I don't know why it died, right?
Because no one used it.
But it died because no one used it. But then when you tie it with a different kind of scenario, you would have found people using it. Yeah? But if you're tying it only in a situation in which you have people cruising and gunning their cars down the avenue because you made the whole thing a cruising strip, it won't live. So that's what I have to say. Let's vision it. Let's think about it a particular way. Let's work towards it. Let us make sure that we deal with maintenance and enforcement and safety, and that we work together on it. Don't leave Woodbrook people out of this and it becomes the business people thing. No, not at all. Extremely important. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. And Chris, before you go, one quick thing about the close versus open. I have a perfect example. Drink Wine Bar that used to be on the corner of Rosalino Street and Tradgate Road. Robert Street. They had external speakers and their music was tastefully done. It was not loud.
That's right.
But that does not happen on the avenue because the bars are competing with the bars. They have basically a sound off. So it all comes down to maintenance, and residents have met with them. We have met with them in station council meetings, and it came basically down to they needed to make money, so they didn't really care about the residents. That is only when they started to suffer business-wise did they then seek the sympathy of residents. But open close, as long as there is sound engineers, you can orient your speakers in a certain way and control your volume levels that it doesn't encroach on anybody else.
I agree.
Before you answer, Mr. Scotland, seeing that the talk right now is infrastructure, let me just tell you a quick couple of things. The sewer lines in Woodbrook are over 100 years old, and as you know or may not know, the corporation has been doing a lot of work now with collapsed lines. And by adding more infrastructure, you'll be putting further pressure on these systems. We have buildings that are irregular, are not done to code. They're just without approval. That needs to be upgraded. We need an upgraded drainage system, as people would have mentioned before, with flooding issues that we're having, and upgrading lighting system, not just on the avenue, but on the side streets, because even though the avenue is the main focal point that you all are looking at, you have to appreciate that the side streets would also be affected. And one last thing on infrastructure, we would like you all to rethink the archway of the theme park that is Ariapita Avenue. That would be welcome to Woodbrook. And possibly open that up into, and possibly, because we're supposed to be a creative country that have all these original ideas,
Yeah.
why not have an art competition among the citizens of the country to design the street sign for Ariapita Avenue, that it does not take up any more foot space than the actual street sign that's already there, and bling it up or something and just make it all fancy pants. But instead of doing an archway, which is, from the examples we have in history, are not well done at all. Or one last point, as Chris just pointed out, garbage disposal in the area, which is not happening properly. And because of the food vendors that are not being regulated, we have a lot of rats in the area. Puppy-sized rats, not little fluffy ones that you find in labs, ones that look like if they're experiments. Anywho, you could go ahead and answer.
Right. Let me start. I've now been able to look at the chart and what was shared on the chat. The flooding and the infrastructure, that is something that predate me, but it is something that we must look at, because you cannot have development and still have things such as flooding. And the cause of the flooding, I don't know what is the root cause of the flooding on Ariapita Avenue. Having traversed that area all the time, is it that when, for example, Ryson Road floods, which is frequently, some of that flooding spills over from the northern side onto onto parts of Ariapita Avenue?
I think it starts from, I think a part of the root cause of that is Movie Town, when they removed some of the mangrove there, as well as the construction of One Woodbrook Place.
Oh.
So you would have flooding in Woodbrook without the Maraval River actually breaching its banks. The last time we had some heavy rain, it went all the way to Gala Street on the avenue, which is pretty far in on the avenue.
I will
Can I say
call
something
somebody.
to this? Can I just say something to that flooding?
Yes.
I understand that Woodbrook used to flood very heavily in the 30s and 40s. And then some raising was done from the edge of the farm. But with the construction of One Woodbrook Place, that what was done to the farm, because that's where the farm was, what was done to taper it down into the farm was undone. And that is how the flooding started again.
Okay, so, well, that is something that we would have to look at, because I don't know much about it, but I certainly can speak to Mr. Sinanan just to find out what are the plans for the flooding. Was it Mr. Chad? Chad, you were singing to the choir when you speak about street food vending and their and quality and their lack of sanitation. If we are to create something that is world class, you can't have a place where rats that are as big as cats are running around. So, and that will be dealt with. This one I can answer by the Ministry of Health, and I think that for food, as when and if this gets on the way and gets going, there'll be stricter measures in place before you are given a food badge. And if you know, the Ministry of Health officials, when in the time of Miss Mackenzie, when she was the magistrate, used to go around at various venues when they were having incidents, when they were having occasions, and inspect the food. I think that is something that we will insist upon, ensure that just not the vendors, but the other establishments adhere to Ministry of Health standards. I am getting a sense that the residents, you all are not running us out of Woodbrook. I'm getting a sense that we could work together. If I'm wrong, you
That's
can
how it
feel
always
free.
has been.
If I'm wrong, you can feel free I can tell you that since our meeting, I have engaged with some persons, and I'm very glad, Ms. Wadler, I engaged with you, but I'm getting, if that is the sense that I'm getting, residents of Woodbrook, I say to you, work with me. We will do nice things for Woodbrook. I've only had one person, I'm doing a house to house, only one person threatened to shoot my secretary. Everybody was decent.
Mm.
And if you know me, you know I going back by that one person to deliver my, soon as this thing dies down, I will be going back to deliver the form. Put it in the form. What I intend to do is to take all your ideas, particularly the sense I get from you is don't develop Woodbrook to the detriment of the residents. Am
Residents.
I correct? I want to work with you. What I
That's
don't
exactly
want
it.
to happen, people, what I don't want to happen is that you all are caught in your places with cars parked in front of your driveway. Corey, you can get my mobile from Mrs. Waddle. I certainly will, as soon as this 23rd of May is down, I will come and meet your grandmother personally. Now, no one has asked me when they pedestrianize Woodbrook, how will the residents who have cars move in and around? I didn't hear that question. That is something that
Oh, we
troubles
didn't
me.
get to that yet.
Okay, that is something that I will look at. Maybe it's a path that what
MP,
yes.
MP, you're getting off lightly so far. We really have 1,001 questions.
Thank you. Well, I promised to do it from 6:30 to 7:30. I can go until 8 because I have to prepare for court in the morning. Now, you were lucky when you were the mayor because you had a magistrate who worked with you and she was proactive. Well, what I
No,
want to say,
but if I may say, I was not lucky. I did the work.
you did.
I would have had countless town meetings in Woodbrook, and these matters we would have dealt with face to face, one-on-one. Hence the reason why 20 of us could have gone to court on 16 occasions to regularize some of the very issues we speak of today. We took a very proactive position in that Woodbrook had a good counselor in Cleveland Garcia, and he was supported by his council. So that the issues that we are dealing with here today are all issues that ought not to have reared its head again. It has reared its head because somebody went to sleep on the job.
I have
well,
seen
let me
that.
interject here for a second.
Chair, I have a comment I'd like to make on behalf of Taylor Street. Please,
yes,
I'm begging
yes,
you.
Okay, wait.
You keep telling me to wait, but everybody going and talking.
Taylor,
I want to add some
okay, you need
character.
to, right. Okay, you know what? Your tone is not, you
You
can't get on like that, man. Everybody's been waiting their turn, so you can't.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, man.
Yeah. No.
Chair, I'm in your hands.
So,
if you would permit, I would hear Taylor Street. If you would permit, Chair. He is only emotive. I would like to hear him, please. With your leave, Chair.
okay, Taylor Street, you could go ahead. Taylor Street. Okay.
Taylor Street.
Taylor Street left.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, okay. Seeing that we have, if he comes back on, I'll give him a chance to speak. But we're trying to get through some topics here. We're not going to get through everything in the limited time. And we're trying to accommodate as much people as possible. So yeah. Okay, we want to just touch quickly on a sore point, and I'm surprised nobody has brought it up yet. Just quickly going to touch on it because I know you have limited time left, right? Carnival. Carnival. Issues. I'm going to send you all these comments.
But am I carnival issues as it relates to the? Tell me, what are the carnival issues?
Okay, with the development of the avenue and the pedestrianization,
Yeah.
people have concerns that if the avenue is going to be blocked off to have parties like they've had the last couple of years, which has traumatized a lot of residents who were not able to sleep. As it is, we have the issue when before times where trucks would be allowed to parade up and down on a Friday and Saturday night, just blasting music, advertising anything from conkles to, cheesies or whatever. And then we have the issues, the usual carnival issues, the duvet paints, the loud noise, the EMA not doing anything, authorities basically not doing anything, because we need an update in the proclamation because it has not been updated yet. So find that. Right, so just touching on those carnival. I will send you all of this. But yes, I'm sorry, I'm just getting a phone call at the same time as distracting me. So yes, those are the usual issues regarding Carnival, because with the pedestrianization, if they with trucks and everything, wouldn't it damage some of the infrastructure that you'll plan to put in?
The answers I really don't know as yet because I have not yet addressed my mind to carnival. May I say this though? I thought, and I could be wrong, one of the attractions of the Avenue and Carnival, and residents, you'll have to tell me, was that it was a major thoroughfare for the bands to pass east and west along Ariapita Avenue. But I do that from the point of a past masquerader and an observer. Is it that the residents are saying, look, we don't like that? That is just
No,
no?
the problem with Carnival is, if you take a poll of Woodbrook residents, the overwhelming majority would tell you they don't want Carnival out of Woodbrook. We want Carnival in Woodbrook. We like it. We love it. A lot of us play in it and partake in it. But the issue becomes the ridiculously loud noises when a band is passing, and then the street vendors who also have their DJs are competing with the bands, and you don't get. When a band passes on the avenue, the residents who live in the perimeter do not get a break from the music ever. So it's a constant bombardment. And it does not just start on Carnival Monday and Tuesday, it starts from the week before and it goes on afterwards. The duvet paint and the disrespect. It's a level of frustration.
I don't know how. This is a complaint that takes us in a way outside of what we are doing here, but it is something that we would have to look at. Maybe I should say less and not share my full thoughts, but my thoughts was always to, if there's a carnival, and this is just my thought, to bring carnival as a part back to Port of Spain. I heard that there's a dome now that the bands go to. I was of the mind, and this is just me speaking to you all as my constituents. So I'm talking here. I'm not letting my guard down, but I'm sharing my views. I guess what will come with that, however, is the attendant misbehavior, damage to property sometime, and that is something that ought to be looked at. Let me say this. I saw someone say that they don't want lip service. When I draft the letter, Mrs. Wardle, I will give you, I will CC you, you will have a copy, because I certainly will when I crystallize, I understand what your views are, and I'm quite good at nubbing things, but I don't want in nubbing that I miss any nuance. But I think I've gotten a sense, and when I see it in writing, I can do even much better. I did
Okay,
go, we
great.
went into extra time. May I, oh, sorry, Madam Chair, I'm in your hand. Go.
Could we beg for 10 minutes more, please?
There's no begging where I am concerned. If you ask for 10 minutes, you get 15 minutes until 1:15. Did Taylor Street come back on?
I don't believe so.
No, he did not.
Well, we certainly did not run it.
Can I
didn't.
can I add something, please? Thank you so much for taking your time to speaking to us this evening. I don't think yes, there's a problem with Carnival. However, we want to just make sure that this pedestrianization of the avenue doesn't further worsen the problems with Carnival, the existing problems. So yes, we know that there's certain things that are within your purview, but we just want you to hear us say, we don't want this to make it even worse than it is currently.
Agreed.
Could I ask a quick question with the limited time? I'm from the eastern side of Woodbrook, and I get the impression that most of the conversation is to do with the western side of Woodbrook.
What do you mean by the eastern side of Woodbrook?
Meaning from French Street down to Colville Street. Mr. Scotland, I don't know if you passed this way, because you're talking about some of your people having, walked around some parts of Woodbrook. But certainly on our end, I've been home most of the time. I don't recall anybody visiting. Perhaps I missed it.
No,
but very quickly,
yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, madam, you go ahead.
Yeah, okay. No, very quickly, I know time is short. When it comes to the flooding and so on, we were all talking about O'Connor Street. We also have a lot of flooding at the corner of Colville and Ariapita Avenue. So if it's going to be addressed, please don't forget this side of Woodbrook. Now, we're talking about the pedestrianization and enhancement of Ariapita Avenue. I don't know where it's going to start and where it's going to end. What I am concerned about is, I'm not sure what's going to happen with the parking, but I imagine that lots of people are going to park on the side street and probably even get to Robert Street. We have a lot of prostitutes on Robert Street. Maybe it doesn't affect some of the other parts of Woodbrook because I haven't heard anybody speaking about that. Is there anything that we could do about this thing? I'm tired of seeing the man with the long blonde hair almost every night at the corner of Gattaca Street and Robert Street. Can we do something about the prostitution? The parking as well. Robert Street is almost as busy as Stradgate Road or just as busy as Stradgate Road. Is there ever a time that we can introduce maybe some sort of alternate parking? Gattaca Street, there are so many businesses around there, the various radio stations and television stations and the G4. I am tired of having to go and look for parking at Kitchener Street and Baden-Powell Street. I'm a senior citizen now and I don't feel that I want to do that at all. There's an empty car park that belongs to Port of Spain Corporation, I believe, on Robert Street, on the southern side as you approach Colville Street. I'm not sure if it still belongs to the Port of Spain Corporation. Is there anything that could be done so that people who are visiting the neighborhood from as early as 7 o'clock in the morning can go and do that? So I don't have to go and park on Ariapita Avenue and then walk home. These are the things that affect Robert Street. As far as the neighborhood watch is concerned, I hear us talking about Ms. Durham, but I also have a different councillor, Mr. Bristol. I don't know if he's included in what's going on.
No, but he certainly is an active councillor.
Right.
But you all don't have a neighborhood watch.
Well, I'm not sure.
We do have a neighborhood watch.
But is there a neighborhood watch that is extended to this side of Woodbrook?
All right. Okay.
Yes, it has been established for a very long time now, for a couple months now, and you're Zone 1. I've sent emails.
I never got an email.
All right.
Are you on the email list?
I don't know. I mean, I got the email today about this meeting, but I never got any email about any zones.
You would have gotten that. Okay, Karen. It's not a problem.
Yes,
I will send it to you again.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Scotland.
May I suggest this? If I remember Gattaca Street, Gattaca Street is to the south of where, if you walk straight north, you will come and you come onto Stradgate Road. You'll come to Picton Street, which is on the other side, that's Gattaca. There was an old, if I remember Gattaca Street, there was an old grocery there. That's Gattaca Street. You say if you walk north to Gattaca Street, where Robert Street is there, prostitutes, etc., etc., etc. My advice to you, madam, and I have taken what you have said, is to simply alert the police. As far as I recall, prostitution is still an offense. And I will also speak to your counselor, who is Derek Bristol, about that. With respect to the parking, and I'm now bringing this back to our development. I don't know if you all know Woodbrook residents, but you know that just east of Colville Street, on opposite the cemetery, was what was called the old ice factory. Do you, Miss Waddle, do you know that?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That is a area which is abandoned. We'll have to find out who owns it, but that will certainly be an ideal location if necessary for
I believe Unicort has plans for that.
Well, we have to look and see, but that's certainly an area for parking. It must be a concern of the residents on the weekend that cars will be blocking your ingress and egress from your property. That is something, be there development or not, that I intend to write the Commissioner of Police about with respect to persons' driveways being blocked. I heard about the person who...
MP, I
Yes.
want to say to you, these are matters that have long been addressed. All Woodbrook residents were given a permit, which they could put in front of their car on their windscreen,
right,
so that if their vehicles were parked in front of their driveway, it was not wrecked. You have to return to the wrecking of cars in and around Woodbrook. The only time there is law and order when there's law. Right now, there's no law, so we have disorder.
Okay.
And so the question is, this is a matter that had been solved. Woodbrook residents weren't complaining about that until recently.
That is, in other words, we don't have to reinvent the wheel where
really have to go back to what we were doing and do the work. You speak about putting a police post. It's not the police post. It's the police doing their work.
Understood.
The issue about the male prostitute at the corner of Gattaca Street, he has been arrested on 2 occasions in the last month. But there is no law upon which they can deal with him.
No, man, there is a law. There's the old, they can catch him under the old law of loitering. Don't say that to me. This is what I do.
You could take him to court for loitering, but you can't take him to court.
And he can be imprisoned.
Well then we need to get the city police to be aware that there is such a law that they are not aware of. I have the evidence where he was arrested on 2 occasions in the last month.
And this is what I have to... Yes, go ahead. Sorry, madam.
Okay, I think
I apologize, Chairman.
Thanks for the
Madam
info.
Chair,
But with limited time, I just want to get back on track. Okay, so suggestions. Yeah, we know prostitution is a problem. It's been in Woodbrook forever. But moving back to the topic, residents would like to know if there could be a move to limit the number of bars per block in an attempt to possibly ease the noise congestion and encourage more
I just lost you.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay.
And encourage more
cafes, juice bars, more artisan craft stuff, stores, tourism guides regarding like Angostura with all the historical streets and the park names, naming the parks and all of that with the interaction.
That's something that's worth considering.
Yeah. A couple other comments, some general comments. I want to see a lovely mixed community. I live with elderly and young. Let me just bring that up. We are a long-time Woodbrook family. I do not like empty streets. I consider them unsafe. Our culture is not about blasting music. Music, however, is part of our culture. What matters is regulation. About the revitalization of downtown, it's a ghost town. Okay, I think I said that one already. We would like to have 2 representatives from the Woodbrook Community Council or an actual resident on the planning committee. So to give you all feedback as to what actually happens, because we are aware that nobody on the committee actually lives in the area and will not have a proper idea of what is happening. Another resident says they fully support the change with the awareness that for development of the community and the environment. We would like to have no glass bottles along the avenue because that has been a problem when people have too much to drink and decide to smash it on the pavements. We want to mandate that each commercial property have some sort of greenery in their area, be it in front of their property or on their rooftops. And another comment is we should not use this project as a do as we say, and if we want to get improved policing. Okay. Stuart, you could unmic and speak. Hey, Stuart.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be very short and brief. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can everyone hear me? Yes. Good. Me personally, I live on Gala Street, and a lot of changes have happened over the years in regards to Ariapita Avenue. This incentive for just the avenue, I strongly believe it's just for Ariapita Avenue. And I guess that's why the residents of Woodbrook is actually speaking up, because no attention is being brought to the residents who live on the side streets of the avenue. So my 2 cents in regards to all of this, which is short and sweet. Because the avenue is developing or has been developing over the years, you're going to get a lot of traffic. And with this new incentive, traffic is going to be increased. Regardless if you put parking or multi-story parking, people are going to park in the side streets. It's a natural habit where people park closer to where they want to be. Say, for instance, anybody who wants to hang out at Frankie's, they're gonna park on that side street, basically. So I would like there are some streets that are doing it. I would like all side streets to have alternate side parking. As Mr. Leasing said, wrecking needs to be brought back in Woodbrook to ease the congestion and to not have residents complaining about people parking in their driveway. I realized that recently, I think it was last year or year before, I think it was year before, they paved the avenue, which was really, really good. But which was sad. The sad thing is that they didn't pave any of the side streets. And the side streets, there are potholes, you know, the streets on them are ridiculous, really, really, really bad. And everyone uses the side streets to turn up to get away from some sort of traffic. And I would like to see the side streets, all the side streets in Woodbrook, from the stadium all the way to Caldwell Street, be paved. Lastly, the businesses that's in Woodbrook, well, this is a far-fetched request. I would really like no businesses on the side street. This is a residential area. Well, it's supposed to be a residential area. And where businesses is on the side street, I don't think no one would like to live next to any sort of business, all right? I remember Roscoe's was at the side of a side street there, and I could imagine what the neighbors have been experiencing, you know? So I don't know if it's possible to keep all businesses on the main streets, such as Ariapita Avenue or Orange Street or Track Creek Road. It's an inconvenience, and I don't know whoever else is on the outside of Mr. Scotland lives, but I don't think that he lives next to a, I don't think he lives next to a business. So he has no idea what this feels like, right? And
Okay.
in regards to the businesses on the avenue, I think Ashley touched base on it. So I want to reiterate that sanitation, garbage disposal is serious. The rats and roaches are leaping, keep coming into their other people's households, across people's walls when they leave it. So if you come out at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, to call a few businesses that just put their garbages outside there, and when city corporation comes, you know, later, you know, wee hours of the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you have the vagrants already bust open the bags, the rats on them already attack it, and it just encourages mess. So they don't have no proper way of disposing of their garbage, which leaves the community ultimately in a mess. And lastly, it's just the pavements on them need to be redone over. So, but the list goes on and on. I would also like to get in contact with Ashley to highlight more of my point of views, and hopefully she can bring those point of views across to Mr. Keith Scotland. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And feel free to message on the Facebook page or send an email to woodbrookra@gmail.com. Is there anyone from Taylor Street that wishes to speak? No? Okay. Chris, if you go ahead.
Yes, I just want to make one short statement that I think probably will explain a lot. It is only recently that I realized that there are a lot of people in Trinidad who actually believe that people don't live in Woodbrook. And this is something that a couple of people have actually said to me. They were shocked that people actually live in Woodbrook. They thought that even the buildings that they see that look like houses are doctors, etc., etc. So they don't think that people live here. And it's a much more real thing than you think. So I just wanted to point that out, because I think that as well is part of the thing that operates in the minds of some of our business neighbors. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Chad.
Ms. Waddle?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Tell
Are you out of time?
me how long
Okay, we're just gonna take a quick comment from Chad and then we'll wrap it up after that, okay?
But if there are other persons who want to comment,
that's the only hand I'm seeing up right now.
okay. So we'll take Chad and
Taylor Street has not come
Taylor
up
Street
yet.
is gone, but
Okay,
that's
Chad,
no
go ahead.
problem.
Yes. Chad?
Hi, sorry about that. Mr. Scotland, I think everybody has touched more or less on every single base that we want to bring across to you. Just for reiteration, infrastructure, control of businesses, sanitation, stricter measures for food persons, etc., side streets, paving, so forth, so forth, so forth. Again, we want nice things, and we want to work with you. And the comments about everything just being lip service, we as Woodbrook residents have had time and time again too much of that. And we would really appreciate and hope that anybody who comes into us, and Mr. Lee, thank you very much for what you have done in the past for us. And I will hope that you, Mr. Scotland, will take some heed, or would like to work with Mr. Lee and take some of the notes that he took when my mother and many of the residents who are here now were working together going forward. Because the plans are good, but the devil is in the details. And we as your residents, we have a major stake to play And I wouldn't say the businesses as per the bars and the restaurants, but the small businesses, the little doctor's office here, the little parlor here, well, nail parlor, nail salon, the little preschools around, they also have a stake to say in what is done during Woodbrook. They have their working hours, and many businesses as well work with the residents. The major issue is that the development has to go hand in hand with both the residents and the shareholders, stakeholders, that everybody needs to get a say and be heard. There is a middle ground for everybody to benefit. And if we can't find that middle ground, we come back to square one where everybody is just angry and vexed again. And I will, all of us, I'm hoping that we'll put forward what the major issues that we need to see going forward. And I stated in the first time I said this, that anything that's done for the avenue has to benefit the people on the side streets and vice versa, because avenue cannot live without the side streets and the side streets can't live without the avenue. So we all have to work in tandem to really get these projects going and see it, because we want to, Woodbrook people like the line. We love Carnival. We love everything about Woodbrook. We just don't want to see it. This is the nicest word I could put on that we have people around. Be bastardized by plans that are half thought out or have not been detailed enough to go forward. The proof is in the
Okay,
pudding, the devil is in the detail.
fair enough. May I, Chairman,
Yes.
Chairperson,
You can go ahead.
may I be allowed with your leave the very brief closing remark?
Yes.
Um,
Yes, you can feel free.
this meeting, I saw, and someone rightly said, Mrs. Buckmeyer rightly said, look here, lip service, but I took time off this evening, madam. I called you until you said yes to have the meeting. Moved from Monday to Wednesday, I made myself available because I want this to happen. I want it to happen in tandem with you, meaning the residents, and I don't want the residents to feel that we are doing a development and you're not included, and we are only going to, and I'm using this just as a metaphor, that we are just going to concentrate on the avenue and not the side streets. That is not how it will be. I undertake, once we are finished, madam, you will provide me with the aid memoir that we discussed, and you will be copied in on my letter that will be written on behalf of the residents with respect to this project. My next, I just want to ask you this question, you can get back to me. Do you think then that having a next public consultation, as we did 2 Mondays ago, will be beneficial? I think it very well may be, because we have had this meeting now and you get your views out there again. I will say, if you say yes to me, I will consult with the others to make it happen. Agreed?
I will say yes, because we've put our things out there and we need to get feedback on them, on how things will
Well,
go.
all
So
right.
yes, definitely yes.
But and I just want to finally remind you that these decisions that are made here will not be made tonight in this discussion, but it will be made certainly
Yes.
with my input, and I will hold on. I certainly will be able to put your views forward in a structured way. I understand your the position. I want to thank the residents of Woodbrook for having this meeting with me and being so civil. I expected nothing less, actually. And I want to thank everyone for taking time off from your busy schedule. I noticed that Mr. Ray Holman left due to connectivity issues. You all will not know that Mr. Holman taught me Spanish at school. Well, you know what school I'm talking about. And was very sad that he left the meeting, and I want to thank everyone for their comments. I have taken notes, and I do say that if I get the names of those with the leases that need to be renewed, humor me now, please send me the names with the details and let me write a letter to the Honorable Attorney General saying, please expedite.
Okay, great. Well, I want to, on behalf of all the residents, I'd like to thank you for taking the time.
Wait, hold on. Oh, good. I am very saddened, madam, that Taylor Street did not see it fit to stay on because we're here to embrace all the views. I say no more.
He has been trying to get back on, but it's not allowing him to get back on. And I've checked the settings, and I'm not exactly sure why he's being refused, because from my end, it looks like he should be able to just log right back on. But
Please
technology
let him know.
failed.
Please let him know that I would have wanted to hear his views. Even I would have wanted to hear his views. Full stop. Madam Chair, I'm in your hands.
Okay. Okay, well, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to meet with us and to hear our views. I know we went a wee bit over time. We went a bit over time, and we appreciate that you were able to extend some extra time to us. We look forward to hearing from you to set up the next meeting, where we will hopefully get some more clarification on the steps moving forward. Again, residents, we want to see improvements. We are not anti-development in Woodbrook, but it needs to be balanced, and it must not be to our detriment. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for logging on today, and feel free to send your messages and emails to me and to your MP with any questions or concerns. And Karen, please email me, because I'll add you onto the list in the Neighborhood Watch, as well as anybody else who needs to get on.
Madam Chair, what was your credential report for tonight? How many people attended?
We had I'll have to check that. At one point it was over 70, but I know that many people are limited with the technology. So you add 74. I know that people are limited with technologies and availability to log online.
Madam Chair, may I ask you if the residents are getting or seeing the letters that I've left for them to have their views? Can I just get a yay or nay on that?
I've received mine. I've heard from a few other people that they have received in their mailboxes.
I haven't received mine.
If anybody hasn't received it, just
which street are you still?
Okay.
I am on Gala Street, number 56 Gala Street.
Okay. Well, we still have some way to go, but I really want everybody to receive it so they can give me their replies, please.
Oh, I'm just hearing that we went up to 91 views.
That is 91. Wow. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Telling me that 91. Okay,
Madam Chair.
Okay, so until the next time.
May I be relieved, please?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
You may be relieved. And we want to remind you to wash your hands and sanitize, because we had almost 400 cases today.
$3.99.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Bye-bye. $3.99. Thank you. Bye-bye.